Okay, so, hi, hello, welcome back to another Creepypasta Storytime video. It's been a while since I've recorded one of these, but by the time you're probably seeing this, the second one I recorded hasn't already been out. I previously recorded one called Coal Dust, and it has yet to be released yet because I've just been pushing out the new content, so, this part would be posted before that one. But yeah, I'm posting this one before that one because I'm trying out something new. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but I currently have some background music. I'm trying to spice up my videos for a little bit because I'm limited by hardware. But outside of that, let's get into it. So by the title, you're probably wondering what is creepypasta called hospitality. This is one of those anonymously authored creepypastas. I've been doing that a lot recently just to kind of avoid copyright, and I still want to do horror type content for you all, so this is the best I can do. So this one has deaths, murders, and disappearances, locations and sites, nature and outdoors. This one takes place in Alabama. This one, as previously mentioned, is anonymous and anonymously authored. It has location, murders, nature, outdoors, sites, the South, and the woods, and this one should take me 14 minutes, which will probably take longer because this is all one take. So if you hear me stumble and mutter words, sorry about that. My brain's kind of stupid, and sometimes I read words that I know, but I just can't say. So outside of that, let's get into it. I've always been a creature of the city. The cold, hard streets, the tall, luminous skyscrapers, and the people, all self-absorbed in their own little stories to be concerned with the person next to them on the subway, or the person they just rammed into trying to get to where they need to go. It's where I was born, and it's what I'm used to. But sometimes you have to take a break from the uniformity and treat yourself, and that's exactly what I did. I have a cousin down in Alabama, deep south. He invited me over, and it was something I put off for way too long. Well, what the hell? I guess it's just time to mix things up. My plane landed after a 4.5-hour plane flight. My legs were cramped, my back was sore, and my brain was numbed from the crying babies, but regardless, we landed. But I still had a long drive ahead of me before I can cash in at my cousin's place. After I got off the plane, I went to the baggage retrieval, and then went to the car rental. Shocker of all shocks, the rental supplied me with a shitty old Ford hatchback. It seemed like the best car they had, but I did my best to ignore the mystery staying in the back seat. It was best that way. I pulled out of the rental and began the long drive out of the city into the rural countryside. I am a complete fucking idiot. I did myself in. Big time. I forgot to check the fuel gauge. Stupid, stupid, stupid. I was driving through a twisted dirt road, and the sides lined with tall, dark trees, and the road beyond my headlight pitch black. And suddenly, I ran out of fuel. I pulled over, but I doubt that actually mattered. Who would use this obscure-ass dirt road in the middle of the Alabama backwoods? Answer: me. A complete and total idiot. As I tried hard not to completely second-guess my decision to come here, and I was having a real hard time with that. I got out of the car and stood at the side of the road. I looked at my cell phone, and sure enough, no service. The only way it doesn't get worse, if Jason fucking Voorhees came crashing through the forest with his machete and ran me through. Regardless, I was stuck. Completely and totally. So I did the only thing I could. I crawled into the backseat of the car and tried to sleep. Why? I had nothing else to do. No other option. I couldn't make calls, I couldn't drive anywhere, so I would sleep. And in the morning, I would walk. Through an Alabama backwoods. Yeah, I'm totally fucked. This was my line of thinking as I lay on the seat, eyes staring at the ceiling. How was I supposed to fall asleep? I wasn't exactly in a safe neighborhood. Hell, I wasn't even in a neighborhood. And another thing, it was cold. Not the freezing it got in New York winter, but cold enough that my light jacket couldn't stop me from shivering. I felt pathetic. I crawled up the front seat of I crawled up the front to see if I could turn on the heater, but sure enough, for this shitty car, it was busted. So I climbed back into my back seat and quietly whispered a swearing fit the likes of which would make even angels cry. After that, I felt slightly better, but I still felt stupid for coming here. I felt even stupider for not checking the fuel gauge. God, that was so stupid. Like, mind-bogglingly so. But while I was hounding myself for my own unacceptability, vast stupidity, I heard something that nearly made me cry in relief. A car engine, and tires crunching on the dirt. I practically leaped out of my car, swinging the door open with so much enthusiasm, I should have broke the hinge. The car would surely be my saving grace, and currently only about 100 feet from me. And as it approached, it slowed. I stuck my thumb in the air, signifying I was hitchhiking. The car slowly pulled up beside me and the window rolled down. Inside the cabin, a middle-aged man sat. His hair was gray and balding, his face round and chubby. He had a neat plaid dress shirt tucked into his khaki pants, and below his warm eyes clad in rimless glasses. He gave me an amiable smile, and all my fears of the night were nearly dissolved. "Well, howdy, my friend. Looks like you found yourself in a quiet predicament," he said benevolently. "Yes, sir," I said. He gave a hearty chuckle. "Yep, happens to the best of us, son, especially those who ain't from these parts. I'd be happy to lend you a ride and let you stay in my home for the night, till I can help you with your vehicle." This struck me as odd, as no one in New York would ever offer you a ride in the middle of the night. That was a good way to get yourself mugged, or graped, or worse. But I, admittedly, decided to take full advantage of his blind trust. "Oh, thank you very much, sir. But I'm afraid my car is just out of gas." He nodded. "Ah, that's alright. We have plenty of gasoline back at my humble abode. Tell you what, I can drive you there and call roadside service to pick up your vehicle." I chuckled at this again. "Again, no worries, sir. It's a rental. I can just call the company. I just can't get a signal." He nodded again. "Well, alrighty then, son. I can just drive you to my home and you can call the company. Till they arrive, you can sleep in my house." I felt overwhelmed with gratitude to this kindly stranger, but also a bit nervous. This kind of hospitality always set me on edge. No one was this nice in New York unless they wanted to sell you something, but regardless. I decided to accept this offer. It was just my city instincts after all. No need to be so judgmental. "That would be very kind of you, sir. Thank you." He smiled and nodded. He leaned over to the passenger seat and opened the door. I climbed in the seat and shut the door. The car smoothly accelerated as the man pressed his foot on the gas pedal. The inside of the car was well made, but it had an air of humbleness. As if the driver just wanted a car he could comfortably drive. I respected that. We drove in silence for 10 to 15 minutes until he spoke. "So, what brings you to these parts, son?" he asked politely. I told him about how my cousins had invited me to his house for the week, and how I took the opportunity to get away from the city. He smiled. "You know what, son? I always wanted to visit the city myself, but I could never bear to spend too long away from home." I nodded. As much as I appreciated this stranger's help, I was not in the mood for extended conversation, and something still felt off. Was I really this unused to politeness, or was it something else? I was cut off from this train of guilt-ridden thoughts when the stranger spoke again. "Hey, son, would you kindly grab my eyeglasses wipes from the glove box? I have this darn spot on my glasses." I nodded and opened the glove box. I didn't see them immediately, so I felt around the glove box. And while I was moving around, my hand brushed against a cool metal. I felt around it, and my senses confirmed it was a pistol. That was strange for me because I didn't know anyone who carried in New York. I felt around some more, and my hand wrapped around a small box. I pulled it out and handed it to him. "Thank you kindly, son," he said. Now maybe this wasn't my business, but it was strange for me. I felt something in there. "Do you carry?" I asked, probably rudely, and the stranger didn't seem to mind. "Yes, I do, indeed. I always carry a firearm in my vehicle. Makes me feel safer." I nodded. "Yeah, there's logic to that. It's just that where I'm from, it's so hard to get a gun that no one carries except criminals and gun fanatics." The stranger shook his head. Darn shame. That. Darn shame that. Can't have too much protection nowadays, especially around these." A sharp bump from behind the car cut him off. He turned around, his eyes fixating on the back window, eyebrows cocked. "Son, if you'll kindly wait in here, I'll be going out to investigate that." I nodded, and he exited the car. But that anxiety in my stomach was slowly churning more aggressively, and something felt very, very strange. I decided to do something potentially very, very risky. I opened the glove box again and dug through it some more. After brushing past the pistol again, my hand found a book. But when I dug it out, it wasn't anything suspicious. It was a Bible, but something about this inconspicuous leather book set me on edge. So I opened it to the middle, and there, sitting in the center of a carved-out section of paper, lay a camping knife. I ran my fingers along the edge of the blade, and I saw something that horrified me. The blade was tinted slightly red along the edge. My stomach felt like it knotted several times, and I asked myself a question I should have asked long before I entered this man's vehicle. Why was a man with a car this high quality driving through the Alabama backwoods? I quickly closed the book and stuffed it back into the glove box. I heard the trunk close and his shoes crunching on the dirt as he slowly approached the car again. I saw his figure outside the door just before it swung open, and the man crawled back inside. He was shaking his head shamefully. "What was that sound?" I asked, trying to swallow down the building dread crawling up my throat. The stranger sighed. "It appears we hit a rabbit, son. It was dead when I got there, so I moved it out of the way." Suddenly, I was more acutely aware of the strange things he was saying, like, why would someone pick up a rabbit's corpse? And why had the noise come from the trunk if we had hit a rabbit? Had it come from the trunk? Nevertheless, my suspicions went unvoiced, as I, too, shook my head at the falsified tragedy. "Shame," I said. The stranger cleaned his glasses before repositioning himself at the wheel. "Welp," he said. "No use crying over spilled milk. Let's keep on the move." We still got a good hour's drive ahead of us, and as I made myself the very closest I could be to anything resembling comfort, I tried not to imagine what had actually made that noise, or what this guy was hiding. All I could think about was where I would be in the next hour, and what that meant for my personal health. We drove in silence for the next 20 minutes. The only sound, the purr of the engine, and the dirt underneath the car's tire. That and my own heart pounding my chest so hard I was surprised the stranger couldn't hear it. Or my brain thought horribly, maybe he does hear it and is just used to his victim's hearts doing the same. As we drove, my mind began racing, trying to formulate a plan on how to get out of this car. The best plan I had was saying I needed to take a piss, and then bolting while I was free. But the stranger will probably just chase me. And I seriously didn't want to be chased through Alabama backwoods by a knife-wielding Jesus freak. So I kept coming up with ideas. My best bet was using the gun to shoot the stranger, and then driving back to civilization. But that would require proof of the stranger's psychotic nature, so I was stuck for the moment. Finally, I decided what I needed to do. I would get the stranger out of the car by saying I saw something on the side of the road. If he got out to investigate, I would get out of the car, grab the gun, and go around the back of the car and look in the trunk. This was an older car, so the trunk should have a latch. And he didn't have a key when he went to check the trunk, so it couldn't be locked. So I pretended to stare at something on the side of the road. "Is that a dead deer?" I said. The stranger looked out my window and said, as I had hoped, slow down the car. "I wonder," he said. "Stay here." Not fucking likely. He got out of the car and began making his way into the trees. He seemed to be making his way to a dark lump in the forest a few hundred feet away. Probably a log, but it could be mistaken for an animal with suggestion and darkness. I waited for a few seconds, letting him get far enough away. Then I opened the glove box and drew the pistol. Then I slowly and carefully opened the car door, making as little noise as I humanly could. The door unlatched, making a thump noise. I trained my gaze on his round figure, but he didn't seem to notice. I then carefully tiptoed around the side of the car, treading lightly in the hopes of not crunching dirt underneath my feet. I felt it in my pocket, and sure enough, my phone was still there. My plan was to snap a picture, then steal the car if I had to. I would shoot the stranger. I looked at the gun and turned the safety off. I didn't know how to check if it was loaded, so I just hoped. Then, standing in front of the trunk, I reached for the handle. Dirt crunched beneath me, and I rolled around, extending my arm in the direction of the noise, gun ready. The stranger stood with his arms clasped behind his back, his face shrouded in darkness. He gave a chuckle as dark as his features. "So, boy, you seem to be the curious type. Ain't your mother ever told you to refrain from nosiness?" I gulped and placed my finger on the trigger. "Stay back," I said. "I don't know what you're doing or what's in the trunk, but you better stay the fuck away from me." The stranger tissed. "Such profane language, son. What do you plan on doing with that weapon of yours? Shoot me? You ain't got the nerve. Not to mention, you don't know anything about what's in the trunk. You'll be charged as a murderer." He took a step closer, illuminating his face just a tad bit more. His eyes glistened like fish eggs, boring holes into me with their fierce, murderous look. His smile was less that of friendliness, and more like a wolf baring his teeth at his prey. Just before the kill, he reached into his pocket, pulling out a switchblade. "Now, boy, why don't we hop back in the car and we forget this nonsense about me being a killer? That sounds good." And then my stomach nodded several times over as it realized something very important. "I never accused you of being a killer," I said. "Well, why would you say that?" His smile became a scowl, and he took another step closer. "Get back in the car, boy. You have no idea what you're dealing with." I stepped back, pressing my hand onto the cool metal of the trunk, finding solace in his cold embrace. I then pointed the gun at the stranger, and said what I always wanted to be my final words. "Fuck off!" He cracked his neck like a fistfighter would, and then lurched forward. I pulled the trigger. The muzzle of the pistol erupted in a bright flare, and the stranger grabbed his stomach, dropping his knife. He collapsed forward, hitting his head on the ground at my feet. He gasped, and blood began to pool around his body. I looked at him for a good 10 minutes, then very slowly I turned around, my hand still resting on the trunk. I dropped the gun, placing my other hand inside the groove of the trunk handle. My fingers wrapped around the plastic of the handle. Slowly, they pulled towards me. Bringing the handle with it, the latch released with a thunk. I grabbed my phone from my pocket, pressing the photo app, then aimed at the trunk. I slowly swung it open. The hinges squeaked slightly as they finished their rotation. The lights on either side of the trunk coated my body in a crimson red, and inside the trunk was something that would condemn me for all my life in a cell of a prison. Something that would leave me a burning in the deepest pits of hell for all eternity. It was something that proved me wrong, and proved to the cops that I was a killer with no redemption. And maybe I was, because in that trunk, there was something more than a deer carcass and a shotgun. He was a hunter, and I had just killed an innocent man. Okay, so that's hospitality. Yet again, I like to apologize if I mumbled a lot or just made a lot of errors while reading. The page is it's white text on black background, so it's kind of hard for my eyes to really fixate on them. But hopefully you all still enjoyed. But yeah, I really did like the idea of it though, because I come from LA, So, people in LA are actually sometimes they're kind of helpful, sometimes they aren't, though. But I know New York people just don't give a fuck. It's like the New York mentality. It's like, hey, get the fuck out of my way, you know. So I kind of understand why he's kind of, freaking out. But I think it was pretty good too. It was really good. But I do think that the language is kind of hard. But outside of that, though, the whole brunt of the story was pretty good, though. It was kind of difficult to read, but overall, it was really good. I don't have really more complaints about outside, just maybe the edit would be better. But, I think it's pretty good. And also, the twist at the ending was pretty good, And I think it was pretty good, too. Even with, like, the self-doubt within the main character. He's like, stupid, stupid, stupid. But, yeah. I don't want to keep you guys here any longer. I'm just going to be like that, yeah, the whole time. But hopefully you all enjoyed kind of like the background music with this. This does pretty well. I can do a lot more. It's been a while since I've done any creepypasta storytime videos. I mean, I've just been doing the reading bad 2-sentence horror stories and even like 3 scary horror stories YouTuber edition. But yeah, I do want to say thank you guys so much for watching. It means a lot to me. If you want to support the channel, please leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out. And yeah, all my links are down below if you want to find me on anything down below. And yeah, so I want to say thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye, everyone.